On December 4th, 2023, YouTube published its annual Year in Review blog post, naming the trends that defined online culture over the last 12 months. Several trending topics listed were to be expected, like the Barbie movie, Grimace Shake, and Mr. Beast. But the one that snagged the #1 spot for YouTube's top trend of the year was relatively new and unheard of, at least for those under the age of 12. The top trend that defined online culture in 2023 was Skibidi Toilet, and the users who watched it were primarily Gen Alpha. Skibidi Toilet is a YouTube series created by animator Alexei Gerasimov. The first clip was published in February 2023, and by the time YouTube had dubbed Skibidi Toilet the top trend of the year, the series had reached over 65 billion views, often rivaling Mr. Beast for the platform's highest viewed videos. Skibidi Toilet, now in its 24th season, was an unprecedented success, receiving mainstream attention all around the world for its impact on online humor and internet trends, proving that Gen Alpha might be dethroning Gen Z as the culture-defining generation sooner than we think. From Centennial World, I'm Lauren Meisner, and this is Infinite Scroll, a podcast about internet culture, the creator economy, and how social media is shaping Gen Z. Welcome back to Infinite Scroll, everyone. I am so excited to bring you this episode today. I feel this is a long time coming. Skibidi Toilet has been part of the cultural zeitgeist for about a year now. It gained a lot of attention in July of last year, and we've never really covered it on the podcast before, and I'm not really sure why. I honestly have no idea. I'm sure we've talked about it here and there, like touched on it, but we've never done a deep dive. So last week, friend of the pod, Crystal, one of my besties, media entrepreneur, she runs the feed. Go follow them. They're amazing. So she saw this TikTok. She sent it to me and she was like, oh my God, this man is you. You need to interview this man. So today I'm interviewing a man named Aidan Walker. Aidan is an editor at Know Your Meme. And the TikTok she sent me was the beginning of a video series that he has started on the platform where he dives into Skibidi Toilet and he's uncovering like the deeper meaning behind it and the true lore behind it. It's so interesting. So when I saw his video, I was like, you are so right. So I reached out to him and I reached out to him on LinkedIn, which was a bit unhinged. Like I feel like I'm always on LinkedIn because I'm like in my founder era, you know what I mean? But I didn't even consider that like most people who are gainfully employed and aren't like, I don't know, trying to make it in some type of way are not on LinkedIn all the time. But he did get back to me on LinkedIn and he was like, this is hilarious. I literally never check LinkedIn. So I guess this was meant to be. So I'm bringing you an interview with him. I am so excited. We had such a good conversation. He is so knowledgeable. He's so smart. Like he really takes an academic lens, I feel, to internet culture, which we do. I mean, I think we try to do here and I think we do it pretty well here at Centennial World, but he is like on another level. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear this conversation. But before we get into that, as always, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. It means so much to me. It helps me grow. It helps me keep going. Please sign up to our newsletter, which is called Infinite Scroll. On Fridays, we round up the 5 biggest think pieces on the internet that you need to know. And also join our Geneva group, which is also called Infinite Scroll. It's been a bit dead in there. So they changed the rules because Bumble acquired Geneva, and then you had to be 18 plus to join, and you had to, I think, reinstall the app or like re-download it and enter your age. So it's been a bit dead in there, but I just did that process today and I saw that we had some messages that I hadn't even seen and I was like, oh my God, I feel so bad. So go join our Geneva group. It's also called Infinite Scroll. And I'm going to read a couple comments that I got. One is actually from Geneva and then a couple are on the YouTube. So Ricky in Geneva said, hey guys, longtime Lauren supporter, first time Geneva-er. I thought today's Reddit deep dive was very informative and well structured. Thank you so much, Ricky. You are truly an OG, like a long-time supporter, legit. When you say that, you are. So appreciate it. I actually got quite a bit of feedback on the Reddit episode, which I thought was interesting because I didn't think it was that different than anything else we've done. Like I thought it was very similar to the other tech deep dives that we've done. I don't know. I would be interested to hear what you guys liked particularly more about the Reddit deep dive than other episodes. But Ash, another longtime Lauren supporter for sure, wrote, Love this episode on the Reddit episode. So excited to see you back with a deep dive and glad to know things are looking up. Thank you, Ash. They are. Things are definitely looking up. And then Klyla on YouTube said, Happy July, Lauren. I hope this month will be better than the last. Love the videos. Hoping July brings more subs to this channel. Thank you, Klyla. Same. Subscribe to our YouTube, please, guys. Please. We're growing. Like, we're still very small, but we are getting there. The YouTube is growing much faster than it's ever grown before. And I definitely chalk it up to Danny's editing on the deep dives. Makes such a difference. And then EJJ114 on YouTube said, first of all, Lauren, your skin is glowing in this episode. Oh my God, thank you. And Mini Scroll is my absolute favorite podcast to eat while I watch dinner. Wait, to eat while I watch dinner. I'm dead. To watch while I eat dinner. Oh my God. Thank you. I love that. I'm so glad to hear that. It really just like keeps me going, and it has quite a few likes. I love that. You guys, you're keeping me going. I love it. All right, so I'm so excited to introduce you guys to Aidan Walker. Aidan is a writer and researcher who has worked for Know Your Meme, published academic articles on meme history, and posted yap sessions on TikTok about why memes are a relevant and resonant record of our times that we should all take very seriously. This is right up the infinite scroll alley. You guys can find his meme analysis on TikTok or at How to Do Things with Memes, which is his Substack. So I will put those links down below. I really hope you guys enjoy this chat while we dive into all things Skibidi Toilet. Thank you so much for joining me today, Aidan.
Happy to be here. It's exciting to be on.
I'm so excited to talk with you about all things Skibidi Toilet, essentially the biggest meme on the internet for the last probably 12 months. So for anyone that doesn't know, I found Aidan on TikTok. So I saw that just, what was it, last week maybe, you started doing a TikTok series breaking down the meaning behind Skibidi Toilet. And actually one of my colleagues, another friend here who runs an independent media company, she found your TikTok, sent it to me, and she was like, you have to interview him. This is like so on brand. This is so perfect. And I was like, yes, you are absolutely right. So first, before we even get into anything, can you tell us how this series came to life?
Yeah, so I'm only like 4 episodes deep. It really just began. But I was just sitting around one day and I was like, these Skibidi memes are everywhere. It's sort of become this brain rot word that kind of stands for anything Gen Alpha, anything like chronically online. And I was using it all the time. I was writing about it, thinking about it, making content that involved Skibidi. And I was like, I have no idea what the source material is. And then I was at a barbecue of like a family friend, and I just happened to be talking to a 9-year-old, like all of us do, and Skibidi Toilet came up. And I was like, I've been meaning to watch it, dude. Like, what do you recommend? And he said, watch the early seasons. After episode 70, it falls off. I was like, 70 episodes. I was just surprised. And so I was like, my reaction was that to finding out about it. So I figured if I made content about it, people would be into it. And it's been a wonderful journey that I've just begun getting into this Skibidi-verse and all the lore.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you seen a lot of interest in the series? Like, have you found it's gained any traction?
Yeah, it's done pretty good. I've gotten a lot of followers off of it. And I mean, I feel kind of weird about it because I'm committed now to 20 more Skibidi Toilet videos because there's 20 more seasons of it. But the response has been enough, and like people writing comments that are really thoughtful and interesting, that I kind of feel like I should continue. And it'll be fun for me to continue. But we'll see how I feel, after 15 more videos.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about your background, your career, how you got into like being essentially a full-time professional meme analyzer?
Well, I've been an editor at Know Your Meme for 3 years. And before that, I was working at a media lab that specialized in like early electronic literature, 1990s, early 2000s, hypertext and digital art, which are really these fun experimental things that people started kind of before meme culture happened, and kind of even before a lot of online gaming happened, to experiment with this technology and see what it could do. And so I got into that from like an academic sense. And then I was like, if I want to keep doing this work, Know Your Meme is a really publicly available and interesting place to do it that I was using all the time. And I thankfully, was able to work there. And then after a certain point, I sort of felt that I wanted to go deeper than a Know Your Meme entry lets you go, because usually we're trying to hit an SEO kind of thing, trying to get there before someone else. And so we're rushing to gather all the examples and information we could. And so I did a master's program at Columbia and École Normale Supérieure in Paris. And I focused on kind of social sciences, but also history and literature. And I really dug deep into Distracted Boyfriend, which it's kind of a flex, but I think I'm the world's leading expert on Distracted Boyfriend because nobody else has ever, written 100 pages on it. So I'm a big fish in a small pond, or maybe the only fish in a puddle. And after that, I just, started yapping about Skibidi Toilet on TikTok. And so my career hasn't been around very long, but I'm hoping that it continues. And I'm always glad to share this stuff with people because I love it.
Wait, what is Distracted Boyfriend?
It's from August of 2017. And if you've seen it, it's that meme of the guy in the blue shirt, the girl in the red dress, and the guy in the blue shirt's girlfriend.
Oh, yes.
And they're walking down the street, and he's with the girlfriend. He's distracted by the girl in a red dress. So I kind of gathered up like 200 examples of it. And I analyzed, what kind of labels are people putting over each character? What kind of situation is it talking about? And then I kind of analyzed sort of how it went viral across the different platforms, how it jumped around. And I interviewed some of the journalists that covered it and tried to get an account of that one viral moment.
Oh my God. I'm obsessed with that. That is so cool. That's just such a cool example of how, I mean, I always say this on this podcast or when we're speaking to different brands and stuff, like internet culture just is culture now. Like you can't differentiate the two. And that's just such a strong example of that. Well, I consider myself like the number one primary source of Trisha Paytas news. So I understand where you're coming from. Okay.
I mean, that's breaking important news to many people. We got to know what she's up to.
No,
we got to know what reincarnation her baby is. That's the
totally. She's been like my guilty pleasure creator for so long. And I'm so glad that she's come out the other side now. She's less problematic. And now people are getting on board. I love this renaissance for her. But anyways, so let's get right into Skibidi Toilet. Obviously, that's kind of the topic of today. So can you give us, like, just for anyone that does not know what Skibidi Toilet is, my audience is primarily Gen Z and young millennials. What is Skibidi Toilet? Kind of give us like the Cliff Notes version.
Okay, so Skibidi Toilet is a YouTube show. It is a machinima show, which means that it is made using like a video game's visual engine, and people animate using, different little characters or settings from that video game. So Skibidi Toilet is made in Source Filmmaker, which is a specific engine that like the Valve video game corporation that made Half-Life, and I'm not a gamer, but a few other games, they made this software specifically for people to make movies out of it. And this is like a pretty strong going tradition. It's been going since like probably like the 2000s. And Skibidi Toilet started in early 2023. Mostly as YouTube shorts, and it's been going strong ever since, in season 25 now, and it has 65 billion views total across all of the videos. It's beloved by a generation alpha. It's kind of like the iPad babies. What's on the iPad is Skibidi Toilet a lot of the time. And the plot of it is you have the eponymous Skibidi toilets, which are animated toilets with a human head inside of the bowl that pops out. And they sing this really annoying mashup song. And then you have these people that the Skibidi Toilets are fighting that are cyborgs. Sort of the infantrymen of the cyborgs are these like guys in suits, but they have a CCTV camera for a head. And later in the series, they're joined by, other guys who have a TV for a head or speakers for heads. And both the Skibidi Toilets and these like media people, some people call them that, the cyborgs, are constructing all these like different machines of war, and they're really just locked in this arm race and this cycle of violence that continues and continues, and there's all these awesome like cartoon Marvel movie type boss fights going on, which really attracts the kids. And for about the first like 20 seasons, it was like 20-second YouTube shorts was every episode. But now he's getting into like weird territory where he's doing like 10-minute long, really ambitious, like with a lot of plot kind of stuff. And so it's really altered as a series, and it remains probably like the most popular children's YouTube thing in the world.
Yeah, that is so wild. I'm going to ask you lots of questions about why you think that is in a minute. But obviously, one of the main themes, as you mentioned, is war. So I wanted to share a couple fan theories that I found as to kind of why people believe there's something more to this in the Skibidi Toilet universe. And then I would love to hear your theories as to kind of what you think is actually going on. So one fan theory speculates that the Skibidis are speaking in song and they're spreading like a virus via this sound or this song that they're singing. And then another theory that I found suggests that the war is a metaphorical battle between traditional media, as in like the film and television head, like humanoids, and new media, which is like the Skibidis, internet culture, memes, that kind of vibe. What are your theories there?
So my theory is like I think that stuff is there. The guy who came up with kind of the allegory media theory, or I guess the most famous proponent is Matt Pat, the film theorist YouTuber. And I think that holds. Like you can scan across the series and like check all the boxes. But in a way, I think Skibidi Toilet is a bit too sprawling and there's too much going on, too much other stuff happening for that to like be the one explanation. And I think what that does get right though is that there's this ambiguity between like what side to pick. Because if the skibbities are trashy YouTube content and the camera heads are like traditional media, then in the show the camera heads are kind of figured to be the good guys, or at least the POV character. So it's kind of like, how could the good guys be traditional media if I'm watching a shitty YouTube show about toilets? There seems some divided loyalties there on which kind of media is better. And so my theory, I haven't totally formulated it. I'm trying to like do it live, like across the different TikTok reviews. But my theory kind of is that there's no good guys. And there's something about them both being forms of cyborgs, where they're both kind of these fake, robotic, non-human things, that it's about how violence just begets more violence, and you get into this endless cycle of reprisals and building better, more sophisticated weaponry to compete with one another. And so I think maybe ultimately it's an anti-war show, but it could be that this is just a children's cartoon that's like a Rorschach lot. You could read whatever you want into it, and I'm trying to read it to have an anti-war message, or it could be
No,
the curtains are blue, as people say.
no, I agree with that. I think it's possible that it started out as just like brain rot. And now, as it's evolved, obviously, the creator, Alexi, I don't know how to say his last name, so I don't want to butcher it, but his first name is Alexi, has, started to put more narrative and meaning behind it is possible. But I agree, it's very ambiguous on like who would be the good guys and who would be the bad guys. And I think that's intentional, right? Like things like this are nuanced. And I think that's possibly why younger, like children, are so interested in it. It's not so black and white. There's a lot of questions. That's what I say, speaking of Trisha Paytas, that I always say about her. The best thing is that you have no idea if what she is putting out there is reality or not. And that's kind of how I feel about Skibidi Toilet. So, what predictions do you have for the series? Where do you see this series going? Or do you have any thoughts at all on that?
I could see it just continuing indefinitely. Like there's, I think, certain like mangas or web series that just never really have to end. Like he could always, animate more Skibidi Toilets, animate more camera heads, and like I think his audience would be fine without the closure. But a part of me thinks that he may be having some kind of end game in mind because the episodes have a lot more plot now. And I think it would have something to do with there's a lot of like hybridization we start to see, because a lot of the times when like the camera heads will craft a new weapon, it'll be out of like salvaged Skibidi toilet parts. And so the two sides kind of start to look like each other and they definitely behave like each other. And so I'd like to see like a Skibidi peace treaty being signed, or them realizing they're not so different in the end. But it could go anywhere. I wonder if he has like some notebook where he's written it out.
Absolutely. I did read that he said in an interview he does have an ending in mind, but it's going to take a very long time to get there. So we'll see. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the visuals of the show. I personally feel like I have developed trauma watching this show. Because I find it so unsettling and like repulsive. Like the visual elements of like the toilets, like he made them so dirty, and there's something so disgusting about them. So based on your research, do you think that the animation style and visuals play a significant role in what the series is trying to convey? Or do you, like kind of what we were saying before, do we think it's really just started off as this project, this visual project, this brain rot project, and now it's evolved into something bigger?
Well, it is very like striking visually and is kind of repulsive. I feel the same way. I've kind of desensitized myself at this point, but that was my first response as well. I think on one level, kids love potty humor. That's universal. So, having a toilet. But the thing that really hooked me was the visual style. It's all POV. And a few episodes in, you realize that you are a camera head. And that's the perspective of the series. And you see your character's hands. Sometimes you see your character, committing acts of violence, and it really looks like you literally are doing that yourself. And so there is no like non-diegetic camera in the series. Everything is this toilet head. And so it's following the gaze as you're looking around. And that is like a really limited palette in one way, because, there's so many shots he can't do. He can't do dialogue. He can't really, do any kind of wide shot. It's all from one standing camera head perspective. But in a way, it's a little better than if it were just a movie person's perspective, because the Skibidi Toilet camera head can zoom, which for me is one of the big things that makes it kind of repulsive, is that you'll have him look to the left and then he'll zoom in and zoom out really quickly, which kind of helps with the retention editing of the series, I think. But ultimately, what really interests me is because we're never like just watching something, we're always watching a character's watching. There's no moment in the series that isn't mediated or filtered through this POV cameraman, is what they call him on the Skibidi Toilet fan wiki. I think it raises like these really interesting questions that were really juicy to me, just kind of like being into, literature and film and stuff. Because I'd say the main thing that I think about with the internet is we're always like watching other people's watching. I think a lot of influencer content isn't necessarily filming something, but filming your way of watching it for and sharing that with an audience. And I think Skibidi Toilet is doing that same thing. We're watching someone else's watching. And the interesting part is like kind of judging that person who we're watching through and kind of being like, are they right? Are they wrong? Are they understanding the situation? And there's something about that subjectivity that's really fascinating to me.
No, yeah, you're convincing me that this should win an Academy Award or something. I'm like, you know what? Actually, maybe Skibidi Toilet is more than I thought. I mean, I guess that's the point of your series, right? Let's get on to why Gen Alpha is obsessed with Skibidi Toilet. Why do you think that it is blown up online? Why do you think that Gen Alpha is obsessed?
I'd say like the three reasons for me would be first, like really high production value for what it is. It's very competently made. The fights are awesome to watch. The toilets are hilariously gross. It has everything a little kid would love. And it feels a little like inappropriate or not safe for school or whatever, which they also love going towards that. The second reason for me would be kind of this theme of war that's happening. I think Skibidi Toilet really addresses like conflict in a way that a lot of children's media doesn't. And I mean, not to get too political, but kids are living in a world where there's a lot more conflict, and they're definitely aware of it and thinking about it and worrying about it as much as the adults in their lives are. And so I think they're drawn to it for the same reason that, you or I might be drawn to like some drama or something. I think it does tickle that nerve, maybe in a weird way. And then the third reason for me is that camera head perspective and that kind of watching someone else's watching. I think it really often like interrogates what it's like to watch the world through a screen. And the review I'm really looking forward to doing is there's a moment where the camera head sends out like another camera head to record something. And then you see the camera head POV watching an iPad of the other camera heads filming. And there's just something going on there, something about like watching, filming, posting that I think Skibidi Toilet is really rich in examining. And I think that's part of what draws kids to it, is because, they're iPad babies. And so the show's a little bit about like, what's it like to see the world through iPad? I think that's part of what hooked them.
Yeah, absolutely. In interview for Forbes, Alexi said that, who's the creator, he said that he believes Gen Alpha really likes his series because, quote, it doesn't feel generic or corporate, which is kind of to your first point of it's really well done, but it also explores these different topics that children's media typically won't touch. I also saw an opinion that he really seems to understand internet culture really well, which I suppose is to your latter point, that it's a show about what it's like growing up with technology. And you feel like, we feel like cyborgs ourselves half the time. I can't imagine what it would be like to be an iPad kid. So Skibidi Toilet has sparked a lot of concern to that point among older social media users who have struggled to grasp its premise. So much so that many were left concerned about hearing Skibidi Toilet syndrome, which essentially journalists in Malaysia and Indonesia started writing about this syndrome, claiming that it caused viewers, quote, to refuse to stop imitating the toilet songs and dances. And while the syndrome was a hoax, this led to many conversations around the show's addictive nature. Having watched, the series and deep within the lore, I'd be interested to hear if you think these concerns are valid, or is there imagery in the series that is unsuitable for children, in your opinion?
So in terms of Skibidi Toilet syndrome, that I think is a little bit okay. The videos of it are hilarious. Little kids like in laundry baskets jumping out. But for me, I tie that back to this series and sort of this concern that I think we all have about kids and technology and ourselves with technology, where it's like, how are they going to know what's real? And Skibidi Toilet syndrome, if your child is infected, it's like a problem with them. Knowing where Skibidi Toilet ends and life begins. And, because they all have phones in their pockets, they're essentially the camera heads. And so it's kind of like where is online life? Where is reality? And so I think that probably would be a threat with all kinds of online content. We're all like terminally online. And so that could be a social problem, but I don't think it's like unique to Skibidi Toilet. And I think they could be cured of Skibidi Toilet syndrome. In terms of like the violence that the show might have, I don't think it's any worse than like your typical Marvel movie. There definitely is, in a way, more moral complexity to the violence because we do have this like camera head POV, but we do see the camera heads through that POV like doing horrible things to the Skibidi toilets, like things that would feel like excessive or not okay. And so in a way, I sort of prefer that kind of violence to the more unambiguous violence that we have in a lot of kids media because I think it's a little more realistic and ultimately might do better to convince them that violence is not cool. That said, like it wouldn't be right for every kid. Like it definitely, I'm sure it's inspired tons of nightmares in children. So like I think you just have to know like what the kids in your life are okay with. But like I was saying earlier about sort of why it's popular and how it deals with war, I think to some extent it could be like therapeutic to watch media like that, because kids might be in a place where they don't have the words to talk about this stuff they're seeing as well. Because, the other videos on YouTube will be like literal war footage that children will watch. And so having Skibidi Toilet there, this sort of safe fictional world where these themes are being discussed and also the online communities that spring up around it, I think might actually help kids. And so I think in general, like more thoughtful art for children is not a bad thing, but it really depends on like what the kid, is comfortable with and okay with.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of unnecessary like moral panic around it. Children imitate all different like superheroes, bad guys all the time. Just because they're like imitating Skibidi Toilet, I don't see how this is any different than them watching other types of media and imitating those characters. But on that note, there has been concern that the show is propaganda. So there have been a few claims that the series was Russian propaganda aimed at indoctrinating children. Interestingly, Russian police have also expressed concern after reports started surfacing that cops investigated, quote unquote, the series. What do you think of these claims?
So I heard that there was like a St. Petersburg court case against Skibidi Toilet. I think in general, the politics of it are kind of hard to parse. Like I'm saying, I might just be reading it anti-war because like I want to treat it as anti-war. The situation in the beginning is the Skibidi Toilets are like oppressing the camera heads, and then the camera heads rebel. And so the first phases of the war are like a camera head insurgency against the Skibidi Toilets. And so it could be like maybe like anti-imperialist, but kind of like as I mentioned, we're in this ambiguity of, who are the good guys? Because we see the camera heads doing tons of bad things. And I feel like the Russian state has like other propaganda programs running. I've had people on my comments also say like, oh, it's an American psyop. It's a Chinese psyop. It's a whatever. I think it's just a Georgian guy who's like way too into YouTube stuff, is good at what he does. And then a bunch of kids who like explosions on one level.
Yeah.
But maybe episode 79 will suddenly be like extolling the virtues of Vladimir Putin, and I'll have to change my mind.
No, I completely agree. Okay, so the last thing that I just wanted to talk with you about is my team and I were trying to figure out. So I'm like a young millennial, and my team is all Gen Z. And to me, I'm like, this gives me salad fingers. Like it reminds me so much of our obsession with salad fingers as millennials, watching it and feeling like it was so absurdist and kind of disgusting. And you couldn't look away, but it also had a deeper meaning, right? It was like there was a bigger picture there that was being painted. And we were trying to talk about or figure out for Gen Z, what was that equivalent? Do you have any ideas about that?
Well, I'm Gen Z definitely, and
Hmm.
I'm showing my age here and a lack of internet knowledge. But what is salad fingers, Lauren?
No! What? I'm actually gonna fall off my chair. Aiden, are you for
I
real?
don't know the lore. I'm sorry. It
Oh my
happens.
God.
I trumpet myself as an expert, and then salad fingers reference just goes over my head.
Okay. This, you have to, as soon as you get off this, you have to watch Salad Fingers. It's a YouTube series. It was from 16 years ago, and it's like a post-apocalyptic series, but it was like a cartoon animation, and it's about essentially Salad Fingers is like the main guy, and he's all messed up from like nuclear war. Oh my God, you have to watch it. It is so interesting. Okay, so the reason why I brought that up though is because we were thinking some of the examples we came up with, but I don't think that they have the same like gravity that Salad Fingers or that Skibidi Toilet have. But we thought of Charlie the Unicorn, Fred, the Annoying Orange, I Like Trains, but those just feel
Yeah.
like brain rot, you know?
Yeah, they don't have that like epic scale of
Yeah.
Skibidi Toilet. Charlie the Unicorn videos, Llamas with Hats, amazing content, right? And they do have that like dark theme thing, Charlie gets his kidney stolen. It's like pretty dark stuff, but for me, Skibidi Toilet might be unique. Like I was thinking through this question, what would the Gen Z equivalent be? Like we have our own internet culture, not past tense. We're still here. Gen
Mhm.
Alpha hasn't won yet,
Yes.
but there's nothing like as involved as Skibidi Toilet. And maybe you could say, overall, like the traditions of like late 2010s memes, like object labeling, or maybe like the whole corpus of, Wojaks or something could kind of be the closest thing, like these big lore systems that are running. Because in a way, Skibidi Toilet isn't just one meme, it's like a series of related memes and different, it's a fandom as well. So it's kind of this weird hybrid thing. I almost thought of like Homestuck or, like Neverending Story.
Oh,
In a
yeah.
way, I think kind of like Tumblr fandom culture would be the closest, in a weird way, cousin to Skibidi Toilet.
Oh my God, that's
But
such an
there's
interesting
no,
answer. Yeah, no, I agree. There's
because
no
it's,
equivalent.
yeah.
There's no true equivalent. And we were saying like, well, my one of my editors, she's Gen Z, she's so Gen Z, and she was like, maybe that's why we're all so unserious. Like we didn't have any brain rot content that also doubled as like deeper meaning. Anyways, thank you so much, Aidan, for chatting with me. You have to go watch Salad Fingers. You are gonna be obsessed. Please watch Salad Fingers. That should be your next TikTok series once you're done Skibidi Toilet.
Well, we'll talk in 2 months once Skibidi
Yeah,
Toilet is done, all 20
yeah,
videos.
literally. Thank you so much for joining me. This was so amazing. Where can people find you? Where can they find your work?
So the Skibidi Toilet series is on TikTok. My handle is at Aidan with two A's, etc. Aidan, etc. And then my Substack, How to Do Things with Memes. I post sort of longer takes on that. And that's my presence for now. I'm thinking of doing a YouTube for longer form analysis, but that's still in the works.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. Thank you so much again to Aidan for joining me and sharing all of his wild knowledge with us. That was just quite the journey. Infinite Scroll is a podcast written, produced, and presented by me, Lauren Meisner, for Centennial World. Additional research and reporting is by Annabelle Ben-David. Editing is by Danny Fennick. Thank you guys so much for listening. I love you guys, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.